What's going on, investors? Dust here from Investments. Today is May 2nd, 2023, and this is going to be a technical analysis live stream where we're going to look at some charts, we're going to look at crypto, we're going to look at a couple stocks, and we're just going to blow through them real quick. Just want to get a little bit of an update, see where the markets are at, see what we're looking at, and this is kind of just my trading journal. So if you're new here, my name is Dest, and every once in a while we look at these charts and we make a little bit of a live stream, and I'd be happy to have you join along. So leave a like, leave a sub, tag along the next time. Anyways, let's look at Bitcoin, because this is going to be the macro driver for the altcoin market. So it's a very important coin to look at, and we want to look at a couple things here with Bitcoin right off the bat. First thing is, it's appearing that we might be starting to form a rising wedge pattern. I've seen a couple people starting to chart it this way. Previously, we had been charting it as, let's see if we can pull it up real quick, a parallel channel, which might still be valid, but it didn't really fit the bill too much. So questionable on whether that's accurate, although now this is starting to look more accurate, this ascending wedge or rising wedge pattern, where you're starting to consolidate, and this is typically a bearish pattern. So the way this works is, I have this on Investopedia open right now. You get your rising price action, your higher highs after a significant downtrend, showing that it's like a reversal, right? But then you also get descending volume, and these typically break down to the downside, right? Much like this. Is there a measured move? I'm not exactly sure how to measure that, but I think this has some room to go to the downside. I hate giving bearish news, but it just looks that way. I mean, this is what the chart's kind of telling me. Realistically, I think we could see it pull back to 25,000 without even having a problem. But I think it might be a little more significant, and I think we might see something like 21,000 a little more realistically. Let's look at some other time frames. Yeah, I guess here's what I'm seeing. Okay, so when we look on the daily, this previous high correlates to 25,300, and I think you would hit a bit of a resistance at that level before potentially dropping to about 21,000, which has been kind of the medium line for this, and would honestly make sense to pull back to that level. However, although that is temporary bearish news, right? Is that bearish news altogether? Well, I don't know. You'd be putting in a 1, 2, 3 higher lows each time on a much bigger time scale, which might start setting you up for a juicy run to the upside. So the thing is when you get these turnarounds, when you get these rallies, a lot of times they need to retrace, and that might just be what we're doing here. So I see in the near term downside, but for the long term, I see potential more upside or sideways action for a bit. Just kind of the way this picture seems to be painting itself for me. Now, what does that mean for Bitcoin dominance? Well, if you look at this, the past couple times it's tried to push this 49% level, it's failed, and it's just taken a massive nosedive all the way down to about 30-40%, right? This formation does look stronger, but it does almost look like we're doing a double top here, right? Where we're starting to top out, roll over, and potentially see more to the downside. Again, this might just be a smaller time frame that we see downside. Maybe we need to pull back to something like this green line here, and I'll paint that for you real quick. Maybe we need to do something like that before we actually break out. what does that mean for the alts though? That is the big question, right? Because when you look at something like the Litecoin versus Bitcoin pair, is Bitcoin dropping by, let's say, 10-15% going to significantly impact this in the fact that the price is going to rally, or is the price going to correlate and drop with it? We've kind of seen both happen occasionally, right? So all depending on, I think, how drastic it is and what the perspective outlook is. But even something like Litecoin versus BTC, you're seeing descending volume even though you're putting in higher lows. And let's take a look at LTC USD to see if we see the same thing. You're actually getting a little bit of an increase in volume, a little bit bullish, or a little bit more bullish of an argument, right? And if LTC versus USD holds up while Bitcoin crashes, the LTC versus Bitcoin pair, I don't know, it's confusing, is going to rally. So something I'll be watching. I'm just curious to see how that's going to play out. All right, let's go through some of these cryptos quickly while we're here. LTC looking fantastic still. However, a pretty big significant pullback on Bitcoin might drop you down. In fact, it might drop all of these down. So kind of just in limbo right now with a lot of these cryptos. And I'd be curious to watch the LTC versus BTC charts as Bitcoin starts to drop if it decides it wants to. We always like to point out that LTC has this long upsloping demand line, right? That's dating back all the way to April 2017, where every time it's pulled back to this level and touched it, it's made a significant rally, the smallest of which being a 550% rally to $145. Still thinking that we could easily see, even with a Bitcoin pullback and dropping all the altcoin prices significantly in the shorter time frame, I'm still thinking we could see a nice rally on this. And it just coincides with all the people that are saying how they want to get the big name coins. And realistically, in the US at least, kind of only can get the big name coins now. It's looking worse and worse for prospective purchasing of crypto in the US as all these exchanges just keep getting decimated and closing down to US citizens. It's not great, not a great situation. BNB looking better than most. The thing I like about BNB is after that nice run, that pullback was not as drastic. You're putting in a higher floor here, and it just looks like it has more strength. And I think this is paying homage to something like the actual real life demand for BNB, whether it be for BNB Smart Chain or trading fees or whatever the case may be. It just seems like it's being bought up and accumulated a little stronger than most cryptos. You are starting to build somewhat of a rising wedge here again. These are just starting to paint some bearish chart patterns, you know, where not looking as good as it was a couple weeks ago. Do I still think it looks okay? Yeah, when you zoom out and you look on a bigger time frame, I think we're okay. Like, I don't think it's anything to worry about, but it's just saying the near term looks like it might be a downtrend. So realistically, even though I have BTC charted in this parallel channel, this might be a first indication, like when you break out of this to the downside, that we are falling lower, and then this becomes invalid and we can watch the rising wedge pattern and see what happens there. Anyways, let's continue on. Is there any other ones that I wanted to look at here? EOS was looking better than most for a while, but you made a significant pullback down to that level. You're down below the 200-day moving average. I mean, It's hard to judge this when Bitcoin sits in limbo. What will realistically happen? Like, if Bitcoin was still looking very bullish, this might be a great entry for something like EOS. Very low risk. You're getting there during the accumulation phase before the breakout happens. Would be fantastic entry. However, just things don't look great yet. All right, Dogecoin. Still waiting for a breakout, and I don't think this is the chart we use. Do we use Binance? No, it was Bittrex, because I think that had the most data. Still looking for a breakout. Still having a nice upsloping channel, or upsloping demand line. You just need to break this to the upside, and I think realistically you're going to play this out for a while. You got plenty of time to just keep riding along here, keep riding along before your breakout happens. So it's looking like this is just going to stay flat for a little bit, which I'm curious to see. Okay, this being a thought I want to explore here, I'm curious to see if more cryptos are going to be doing this as Bitcoin pulls back. Are we just going to see something like these nice flat lines continue on and continue on, or are they actually going to make an altcoin rally during Bitcoin's pullback, or after the pullback? Right after the pullback, do they start to run, where maybe the pullback drops you a little bit, but you don't have as significant of a pullback as Bitcoin does, and then as Bitcoin starts to gain strength, you just start to rally? Realistically, I don't think there's as much liquidity in this market, right? I think it'd be hard pressed to find a nice big green volume spike like something you've seen in 0x in 2021. However, the fundamental argument is there for Bitcoin, if it's ever been, with all these banks that are collapsing, all these people that are not getting paid out on shorting all these banks, all this angst against the traditional markets that exists right now, where this is the exact reason that Bitcoin was invented in the first place. So like, right, this happened during the first well, not the first, but the previous recession in 07-08 when Bitcoin was invented, right? This was exactly why, because they just handed banks money and started a cartel, right? Basically a banking cartel. And Bitcoin would be the antithesis of that. ICX still at 618. Great place for it to start to turn around if Bitcoin decides it wants to. And that's kind of the moral of the story today. T-Fuel not looking great. In fact, you're starting to break down. Looking pretty weak, actually. Yeah. Theta, very similar. You're starting to break down. You're pulling back to this green ascending demand line, pulling back below the 200-day moving average. Volume is just decreasing. It's not there. Chili's, much the same, very flat, nothing happening. XLM looking decent, much like ICX if you ask me. Pull back to the 50% level, so it didn't even get down to the 618 level from that bottom. Let's see where it's at from this local run. This is at the 618 level, so this would be a good place for it to reach, or to spring off and start to test again for higher price action. You're also coinciding with the 200-day moving average here. Good spot for it to just start to turn around and make a run. Also makes sense when you start to look at some of the previous support tests or resistance tests. in the local time frame, and not many touches when you look to the left. However, I would say this is a pretty significant level there. Could see XLM start to turn around. Let's look at it versus Bitcoin. And we're pushing all-time, not all-time lows. However, very, very close to all-time lows. Very significant local lows. Very interesting to see. Let's see what ICX versus BTC looks like. Bitrix might be a good one. And this is very low as well. Even though on the USD chart it's making a run. What does it mean? What does it all mean, Basil? I don't know. All right. So need to watch Bitcoin very closely. Bitcoin dominance as well. Are we putting in a double top? Are we starting to break down? I mean, realistically, what are we looking at with this? You don't have much room to go here. Oh boy. Okay, let's switch over to stocks. Let's look at some of the stocks that we look at typically. And we're just gonna kind of blow through a lot of these here. Why is this so important? Almost looking like you're building like this. This wedge, this descending wedge, I think is what it is. Ascending wedge pattern. Yeah. Okay, let's do thinkmarkets.com. Okay. Got downward converging lines. Do we got downward converging lines? I would say we got downward converging lines. You got a couple outliers on top of that, but the median of it is downward converging lines. Declining volume. Does it look like volume is declining? Does not look like volume is declining. It looks like it's actually increasing. However, this is typically a bullish pattern, if I'm not mistaken. And it looks like this is just playing out on a very broad timeline. Oh, okay. When you zoom out, it does look like the volume is decreasing. Okay. This is a hot one here. Interesting. All right, need to watch this. Breakout to the upside here is going to really set you up. And I'm going to put an alert here. Crossing, create. Okay. Breakout to this supply line here. It would be a very bullish indicator here where we might have a falling wedge that's happening at kind of the top of this formation where you've had this nice bullish run, just a little consolidation before continuing on higher. All right. This is going to be one we're going to watch over the next couple days. PEMI, oh Christ. Parallel channel and descent declining here, but then you're starting to turn around. You're putting in 1, 2, 3 lows. Very interesting here. I'm flagging this one as well. However, the problem with this is, as you can see, it's been straight up, straight down here. So yeah, this chart looks fantastic actually. I don't have any patterns on here. I don't have any indicators, but I marked it. I want to start looking at this one a little bit closer. These two charts I'm going to analyze a little bit tomorrow, come up with a story. These are stocks, so they're slower movers. However, PEMIF is a little bit of a faster mover. T-Mobile is still looking like it's topping out, and as we've been saying that since the first time in July of 21. So what do I know? Who knows? EOSE has made almost a full retrace here, which has not been great. You're already down to 786 basically from the all-time low. Not a great chart. However, great spot for it to turn around if it decides it wants to. Would coincide with a lot of resistance and support touches. Just would make sense if it is going to continue on, that it would start to reverse there. Earnings coming 9th of May, is that next week? Next week. I'm going to flag that one as well because that's a pretty important one to look at. PAA just fell apart again, and earnings are later this week. This is exactly what we said we didn't want to see on PAA, where it falls back into this wedge for a third time here, where you had breakout to the upside, falling out, breakout to the upside, falling out. However, it might just be because I have the wedge drawn on this kind of outlier here, and maybe it needed to be a little tighter. Very interesting to see that fall apart again. I don't know if I set my where I set my stop loss, so I'm probably still in that trade. We'll see. Boy, what a weird chart. At end of April, you were falling apart, and then you had an immediate pop up to the upside, almost 12% to the upside, right? And then you just immediately filled that gap, right? Typical with gaps is when you see a gap, they're gonna fill. So pulled back to that level again. Let's see what the fib is telling us to see if this is almost a 618, so would make sense to see. You already hit the 618, then you pulled that. I don't like it. It's showing how weak it is, where it's just unable to break these key levels, right? Like, this should have everything going for it. Should be, I mean, the government's handing them checks and just unable to do anything. Interesting. Still in that trade though. Sorry about that. All right, Nokia, we were saying, was falling apart. However, if it were to reverse at this point, it would make a lot of sense and would start to put in the positive formation that we wanted to see. It's just going to be a long time. GE has just been the winning trade of the past couple of months here, where we caught it on this breakout. We called it the whole time, saying that this inverted head and shoulders was going to have a breakout on the neckline, and our measured move is about 56% to the upside, and it's just been making its way for that the whole time. Fantastic. That's exactly what we want to see with these, analyzing these charts, is we want to get things like this where we can spot these patterns, get our measured moves, and watch it happen. put our bets before that happens and just sit in profits. Beautiful. Amazon, almost happening exactly as we had it drawn since back in February of this year, where just multiple different patterns and things going for it, very layering on top of each other in the positive sense, right? So you have this broadening wedge, breakout to the upside of the broadening wedge, inverted head and shoulders, breakout of that neckline, pulling back to do a retest of that neckline and of the important level that correlates back to resistance in July of 19 and August of 2018. And this is all off this local low from January of this year, which correlated to $80.50, which is just an important level. Look at how many times you had support here in this time frame where you were caught in this range, as well as this test as resistance before breaking out to the upside on March 18th. This is one of the better looking ones, and I'm going to flag this one as well. We got to build a case for all these red ones and just see what's going on. We got to monitor those a little closer. But that's all I got for today. That's my whole spiel. I tend to look at the same ones, so if you are watching, let me know what you're looking at. Get some new ones on my radar. I would greatly appreciate that. That's all I got.